Have you ever had a conversation, walked away from it, and then only later on thought of exactly what you wanted to say? I've noticed that happens more often than I'd like to admit. Let's spend a little bit of time with that today. Hello and welcome to Thrive Within. I'm your host, Mark Bucksath, life coach, educator, and someone who's passionate about helping you live more fully, honestly, and aligned with who you really are. This podcast is your space for real talk and focused coaching on things like confidence, purpose, boundaries, self-doubt, and personal growth. So whether you're on a walk, taking a break, or just giving your brain a moment to breathe, I am so glad you're here. Let's get into it. You ever have that moment where you walk away from a conversation and it kept playing in your head? You play what they said, then you replay what you said, and then somewhere between the parking lot and home, you suddenly think of the perfect response, the one that you wish you would have said. Sometimes that happens while you're brushing your teeth or maybe while you're driving, and sometimes you wake up the next morning and there it is, exactly the sentence that you were looking for yesterday. I've laughed at myself so many times because, I'd wake up and I would think, well, that would have been helpful yesterday. Maybe you've rewritten the same text message 3 times, not because you didn't know what you meant, but because none of the words just sounded quite right. Or maybe someone asked you a question and you answered it, only to spend the rest of the day thinking, that's not really what I meant. And if you've ever done that, I don't think you're struggling to communicate. I think you're carrying more pressure than you realize. So I've been wondering something. Why do so many of us feel like we have to answer immediately? It's not like there's somebody standing there with a stopwatch. No one says, all right, you got 5 seconds, but somehow it feels that way. Someone asks us a question, and almost instantly we begin searching for the right words. Not because we're dishonest, not because we don't know ourselves, because we don't want to leave an awkward silence. We don't want to look uncertain. We don't want people waiting on us. And without realizing it, we create a pressure that wasn't actually there. And what's interesting is I don't think the problem is usually the words. The pressure gets there first. The words struggle to catch up. And sometimes conversations really do move quickly. Life isn't always going to give us time to stop and think, and that's okay. This isn't about becoming slower. This is about noticing how often we rush ourselves when no one else is asking us to. And that really made me stop and think. So a few years ago, I was helping out one of my students go through a lighting setup, and they had the answer. I could see it. He just wasn't able to put it quite into words. And the longer he searched, the more frustrated he became. And finally, I smiled and I said, look, man, take your time. And that's all. Nothing profound, just take your time. And he looked back up at the setup, thought about it for another few seconds, then explained exactly what he was seeing. He knew it all along, he just needed a little bit more room to find the words. And I thought about that moment a lot because I realized I had offered that student something I almost never offered myself. Time. Isn't that messed up? If one of my students needs another 30 seconds, I never think less of them. I don't rush them. I don't finish their sentence. I just give them the time. But somehow I almost never do that for myself. And that's a little messed up. I think somewhere along the way, I started believing I had to have the answer immediately. And honestly, nobody else was asking that of me. I was. Not long ago, I was replying to an email. Nothing emotional, nothing complicated, just a normal email. And I wrote the first paragraph. I read it, I deleted it, started over again. And then I did that a few more times. And then finally, I leaned back in my chair, got up, walked into the kitchen, got a glass of water, looked at the window for a minute. Then I came back, read the email one more time, changed 2 sentences, and pressed send. Nothing magical happened, but something quietly shifted. The words weren't better because I worked harder. They were better because I stopped rushing them. And that made me wonder how often I create pressure for myself that no one else is creating for me. Maybe you've noticed something similar. Maybe not an email, maybe with a conversation, maybe trying to explain how you feel, maybe answering a question. Sometimes the pressure isn't coming from the moment. Sometimes it's coming from us. So, I've been trying something lately. Nothing complicated. Whenever someone asks something of me, I try to remember I don't have to answer the instant they stop talking. Sometimes I take one breath, then I answer. That single breath has become so surprisingly important, not because it helps me find the perfect words. It usually doesn't. It simply gives my honest words a chance to arrive. I've noticed something else. People rarely seem bothered by that pause. Most of the pressure was happening inside me, not theirs, mine. And that's really what made me stop and think, because I'm the one creating the pressure. Maybe I can stop creating it too. So here's what I'd love to try this week. The next time someone asks you a question, before you answer, take one slow breath. That's it. Not to sound thoughtful, not to impress anyone, just simply to remind yourself you don't have to create pressure where there isn't any. Sometimes one quiet breath is enough for your answer to catch up. Maybe today you'll leave a conversation and think of something you wish you would have said. And if that happens, be kind to yourself. Not every honest answer arrives immediately. Some of them simply need room. I've started wondering if confidence isn't really about having the quickest response. Maybe, just maybe, it's trusting that your honest response is worth waiting one breath for. Maybe one slow breath is enough for today. Thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciate you being here. I'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, take care of yourself and remember, you're doing better than you think.